This has been one of the most shocking NFL seasons in recent memory with all kinds of crazy storylines. So today I wanted to take a look at the most shocking surprises of the NFL season, particularly the most surprising teams. I picked 5 here. They're in no particular order, but we're going to start off with the Houston Texans. 3 things really stood out for me for the Houston Texans. Number one, of course, the obvious one. Their record is much improved from last year. They were 4-13. They picked second overall last year. Heading into this year, I didn't have a lot of confidence for the Houston Texans. I still thought that they were going to be one of the bottom feeder teams. The fact that they had a rookie quarterback, the fact that they had a rookie head coach. I like the steps that they took in the past offseason, especially being bold in the draft and trading next year's pick to go out there and land a Will Anderson Jr. in the draft on top of drafting CJ. I like that stuff, but none of that to me felt like it was going to be enough to really be a competitive team this year. But they were. That brings us into my 2 other points is, of course, like we just said, the head coach and the quarterback. You hit home runs on both those guys. DeMeco Ryans has come in here and automatically just flipped the culture of the Houston Texans to now they're a viable, competitive team. He's got these guys really coached up, and especially their defense, which was really bad last year. It's a really young defense, and he's really been able to propel them into a very capable unit. And the biggest piece of this, the crown jewel of the Houston Texans, is C.J. Stroud. I mean, that was an absolute home run pick, getting him with the second overall pick. C.J. Stroud, I think you can already make a case that C.J. Stroud is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And that's not me trying to overhype him or anything. That's simply based on the numbers. I'm just looking at his stats. Before C.J. Stroud got injured, I think he legitimately had a case for MVP this year. That's how good C.J. was. One of the most accurate and efficient quarterbacks this year, and has a hell of an arm, which I didn't expect. I expected the accuracy, but the guy's got a rocket, a cannon of an arm, and he has been incredible, leading them some really impressive wins this year, especially, like late quarter comebacks. So Houston, for me, the fact that I projected them to win like 3 or 4 games this year, and they're already at 8, whether they make the playoffs or not, massive step in the right direction. They're definitely one of the most surprising teams this year. And our next surprising team is the Los Angeles Rams. They won that Super Bowl a couple seasons ago. Then last year, they went into the year with a lot of hype. I picked them to repeat. I thought they were going back to the Super Bowl this past year. However, they crashed and burned because they lost a lot of veteran guys. This past offseason, they got rid of Jalen Ramsey. So I was like, this doesn't really look like a good recipe. There's a lot of unproven guys, a lot of young guys on the Rams outside of their key stars like Stafford, Kupp, and Donald. There's just a lot of unknown about the Rams, and I just didn't have a lot of confidence in them. But 3 big things. Number one, Stafford, I think, has played, obviously, it's not even debatable, far better this year than he did last year. Even before he got injured last year, Matthew Stafford was not looking good at all. Number 2, they had a phenomenal draft. They hit a home run in the draft with 2 guys in specific. Puka Nacua, of course, who's broken all kinds of rookie records this year. And Kyron Williams at running back. They've been looking for that strong running back to really fill the gap of Todd Gurley for years now. And I think that they finally found that with Kyron Williams. He's a beast. And then that third thing is Sean McVay. Sean McVay, in my opinion, is still a top 3 head coach in the NFL and has really flexed his knowledge this year and how he's got this Rams offense back to looking very potent. And now the Rams, it's pretty likely that they're going to be a playoff team this year. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they actually won a playoff game, depending on where they match up against. Our next surprising team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a couple of reasons. Number one reason, honestly, it just comes down to last year. They struggled and barely squeaked into the playoffs with Tom Brady as their quarterback. And it's not like Tom Brady was washed up or anything. Tom Brady was still really good in his last year. So you struggled with Tom Brady. That led me to think if you struggled with Tom, you're bringing Baker in. I don't think this looks like a good recipe. And I thought the Saints were going to be a lot better than what they were. And then Baker, of course, comes and lights it up. I mean, Baker has been incredible this year. I think you can make a case that Baker Mayfield was a top 15 quarterback this season. That's how good he really was. When the Cleveland Browns drafted him, this was the kind of guy that they were looking for. The accuracy. And I think his confidence has finally been restored. He's been kicked around a couple different teams. Left the Browns basically in a disgrace. The Panthers' tenure was bad. The Rams Actually, he looked good there, but they didn't keep him. So I was like, he looks like now he's just going to bounce around the league, but he really found a place in Tampa, has elevated them, and the fact that they're going to make the playoffs a year after losing Tom Brady, I think is extremely impressive. Our next surprising team is the Indianapolis Colts, who surprised me for a lot of reasons. Even going into this year, I had a lot of issues with this team. I didn't like the weapons department. I thought that was always kind of lackluster outside of Pittman. And I was very, very uncertain about Anthony Richardson. I liked him as a prospect. I liked him for his potential. But I thought it was going to take at least a couple years to really make him a productive NFL quarterback. Well, I was wrong about that. At least in the small sample size we got, the 4 games Anthony Richardson played in, he looked really good. So I'm excited to see how his career plays out because he could really be, he has the talent to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't even think that that's hyperbolic. You just go look at some of the plays that he made in college, even in the NFL. The guy's just a pure athlete, and I think he's going to be great. And then he gets hurt. I thought all the momentum was sucked out of the building whenever he got hurt, and it was like, okay, well, they looked cool to start off the year, but now it's like you're bringing Gardner Minshew in, and I don't know. But now they're 8-7, They've been a viable team with Gardner Minshew. I think that goes to credit not only Gardner, I think it's fair to consider him one of the best backups in the NFL and could potentially start for someone next year, just depending on how it plays out. And Shane Steichen, a guy that I think should get some mention for Coach of the Year for the job he's done in Indianapolis. You look at how bad the Colts were last year, and now there's a real chance that this team could be in the playoffs. And the fact that he lost his starting quarterback is extremely impressive. So I think that they definitely deserve to be in one of the most surprising teams. So I made a video way back in the offseason talking about the most intriguing teams entering this NFL season. And I actually put the Cleveland Browns at number 1 on that list. My rationale behind that was I could see the Browns being either really bad or really good. And what I said was they're going to be really bad if their quarterback, Deshaun, doesn't play, or he plays and he's just rusty. He looks like a former shell of himself. And my rationale behind them being good is Deshaun's going to go back to being Houston Deshaun. Well, it turns out kind of like the opposite of that happened. Like Deshaun only played in 6 games this year, yet they've won 11 games. They've already clinched a playoff berth. They've beat the 49ers. That is insane. And we already talked about this a little bit in a video I put out earlier today about Kevin Stefanski, and I think he should be Coach of the Year. The fact that he got this team to 11 wins with a carousel of quarterbacks. We said Deshaun, P.J. Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and now Joe Flacco, who's gone on to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL out of nowhere. So just for the fact that Deshaun and, of course, Nick Chubb got hurt, and my thoughts going into the year is if Deshaun doesn't play, they're kind of screwed, and he hasn't played, and they've been fine. They're an 11-win team. So that's been my most surprising teams this year. Go ahead and let me know in the comments your list, and please like and subscribe.